Well, following the death of President Mills, his Vice President John Dramani Mahama has since been sworn in as his successor until the end of the late President Mills' term. Ghana is due to hold presidential elections in 5 months' time. During his time, President Mills led Ghana the fastest pace of economic growth in the continent. To discuss Ghana after President Atta Mills, Ronak Gopaldas is sovereign analyst at RMB here in studio, as well as Otu Hughes, partner at Iroko Capital, and he's in our Lagos studios. A very warm welcome to you, gentlemen. And I have to start it right here in Joburg with what his passing means. And I would just imagine one of the things that our producer was saying was just reading all the literature. He was quite a darling for Ghana. What does his passing mean, not only for Ghana as a country, but for investors, for the business world as well?
I think President Mills leaves a strong legacy. He's successfully managed to turn Ghana into an economic hub in the West African region. His management of the oil revenues to date has been quite prudent and good. And I think given the sequence of events that has occurred subsequent to his passing, it demonstrates Ghana's political maturity and how it's held up in the face of potentially uncertain situation.
Otu, I have to come to you now in Lagos, and just talking about that political maturity. One of the things that it was surprising, his passing was a surprise to so many of us, because we didn't, I mean, even his illness had not been made as public. So just speak to us about that and what it does in terms of not knowing that something like this happens, and the surprise that we got yesterday. Otu in Lagos, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay.
Okay, we go.
At the past, since.
Okay, what we're going to do is, Otu, we're struggling to hear you. We're going to keep it in Joburg until we can manage to hear you in Lagos. I would like to ask you that question, just the uncertainty that we had. I mean, his passing yesterday, quite a surprise for us.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a shock. There had been rumors of deteriorating health, but it wasn't deemed to be all that serious, so it did come as quite a surprise. But I think if you look at what transpired, the government communicated the development quite quickly, and an emergency session of Parliament was held. The female Speaker of Parliament contacted the female Chief Justice to swear in a president from a minority grouping. In West Africa, that's pretty much unheard of, particularly when you look at what's happened in Guinea-Bissau and in Mali earlier in the year. So, I mean, it was a definite test of Ghana's, political maturity. Was there going to be a constitutional crisis? I think that question was addressed. Was there going to be a political vacuum? It was dealt with very quickly.
Well, one of the good things I think with Ghana is that it's just had so many years of political stability, even though there is change. It's not a country that's known for violence at all. I want to bring it back to Lagos, Otu. I think we've got you now and we'll be able to hear you. Let's try that again.
Thank you.
Otu, I'd like to ask you, just in terms of political uncertainty, that has been one of the worries that people have had, including business and investors, thinking there could be political uncertainty because now not knowing what's going to happen with Mills not being there anymore.
No, I think that thank you. I think that one of the things people have to keep in mind when it comes to Ghana over the past, call it 20-odd years, is that it's successfully gone through a series of elections, has had different political parties take office, each for at least 8 years. So there has been some seasoning of the political and democratic system in the country over the past, call it, couple of decades. Business-wise, if you look at some of the policies, the core infrastructural, oil development, gold development policies have continued even as the different parties have taken shape. So I think from a business perspective, you can be fairly certain that the broad framework and the structure of the business economy is going to continue. What might change would be the emphasis that the different leaders or the different parties put on where they on where they want to take the country, but the broad structure and framework is going to continue.
Otu, I have to ask you this. Why is it that you have this? I mean, when there is a change in government, that you do have this concern of political uncertainty? Because reading some of the literature, if you look at the NPP, which is the main contender in this election, and you look at the NDC, one of the things that is being said is that their policies are not that different from each other. So where does this talk of political uncertainty and not knowing where policy is going to go, where does that come from?
I think at the core, what you come across is that all of the politicians who are looking to run the country have the primary aim of moving the country forward. So you have that fundamental unity of we are all Ghanaians and we are all in this together. Now, where the differences come up is where the focus is, where you have one party which thinks of it more from a supply side basis, another one thinks of it from more of a demand-driven economy. And that is where the fundamental differences come in. You know, how do you distribute the overall wealth being created in the country? But fundamentally, everybody is on the same page, right? We've got to move the country forward. Growth is good for everybody, and let's first achieve the growth, let's bake the pie, and when it's done, we can figure out how it gets distributed.
Ronak,
and I think that's the best thing about what goes in the country.
I think speaking to Otto's point, it's a very dialectical political system. There's the parties are separated by a very small margin following the 2008 elections, very, very slim margin, in fact. In terms of their policies, the NDC is centre-left, the NPP is centre-right, so it's much of a muchness. Added to that, you've got a very politically aware civil society, very politically aware public. The level of debate is high, and the level of engagement in the entire political process is very strong and robust.
One of the things that we did see that he did seem to focus a lot, President Mills, was also the infrastructure. There was this planned infrastructure program for Ghana. We know that Ghana is rich in resources, some of the finds that they've had. I mean, he had started the debut of oil production in late 2010. So infrastructure, very important for this country. What has been said is that there is concern that if the NPP were to come into power, their concern has been that the projects and the way the projects have been allocated and probably awarded have not been transparent, and there's been an accountability issue. Could that come under pressure?
I think it's you know, we're in the middle of an election campaign here, so it's these kind of populist noises and the rhetoric is very common. I think given Ghana's history, it's very common for a government to come in and review a decision, but it's very seldom for a new government to reverse the decision. And I think the Vodafone case is a prime example of that, where there was some controversy over the licensing of that arrangement, but the decision was reviewed but ultimately upheld. And I think that is a clear indication of what we can expect.
We still have much to discuss about this, and we are going to continue with this discussion. But first of all, let's take a look at another clip. Godfrey Mutuzwa last year asked the late President Mills what his hopes were for Ghana. This is how he answered.
I hope that by the time I leave office, I would have helped to raise the living standards of our people. I would have helped to consolidate democracy, rule of law, justice, etc. And above all, I would have left behind me a peaceful and stable Ghana with the right kind of atmosphere for attracting investment.
Well, this is what we see from Renaissance Securities today, is that during its term in office, President Mills adopted tight fiscal and monetary policies, reversed a large twin deficit his government had inherited from the NPP government. He oversaw the country's 60% upward revision of GDP to $31 billion US, and the debut of oil production in late 2010.